Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to start this Clayoo webinar for all of you. This is Xavi Marrodan from the TTM Solutions team. So we're going to start molding a piece of jewelry, a pendant, with a different style that we used to do in previous webinars. So first of all, we're going to start using an image as a reference. So we're going to start click on edit mode to start modeling with Clayoo. So from here, we're going to start with the reference image. So we're going to go to the second tab, to the creation tab, and we're going to go to the blueprint. So once we click on the blueprint on the Clayoo tab, so we're going to find different options. So from top, front, side, and back, those are the different images that we can choose from just to apply it to our document. So from here, I want the image in my front view. So I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to find the image that I searched before. So it's this pendant. For sure, if I need some side views or back views, I can add them in here. In this case, I only need one, so I'm going to click on OK. And this is the image that I want to use as a reference for my model. So this is just a plane. So I can click on the plane, go to the front view, and I can move it. I can do anything that I want with this plane. So I will make sure that more or less this is a little bit centered, so I can change it later. It doesn't matter, more or less something like this. And I'll make sure that I create another layer called blueprint, and I will right click, change object to this layer, and I will lock the layer so I don't click in here just by mistake. So I'm going to start right now modeling my Phoenix. So as I said before, we're going to start modeling this with a different technique. But first of all, we're going to start creating a sphere. So just creating a simple sphere. In here, we're going to just use 2 segments for this sphere, and we're going to validate that. So from here, I will just make sure that this sphere is placed where I want it to be. So if I hide the blueprint, I will say that this is under 0, 0, 0. So I know that it's perfectly centered. So I'll make sure this is the axis that I want to use. So something like that will work. So right now what I'm going to do is I will make sure that this sphere is in a single plane. So what I'm going to do from here, it's just remove. I'm going to select a few faces from this sphere. I will select half of the sphere, and I will delete this part of the object. Right now, I will select the entire object that I have, this half of sphere. I'll make sure that with the scale gamble, I double click on the green axis and I click 0 just to scale it on 0. So just to make this object perfectly plane. Okay, great. Right now, you're going to see that I have my hotkeys activated. So sometimes I'm going to use my keyboard to go a little bit faster. At the beginning, I'm going to say every key that I'm pressing all the time. Okay. So right now, I'm going to change my display mode to ghosted, just to make sure that I can see a little bit the model that I have on the background. So I will select my sphere and I will scale that a little bit in the red axis, and I will scale that a little bit on the blue axis, something like that. Right now, this object is smooth, but I can always click in here or hold tab on my keyboard just to display it in the basic view, okay, in the box mode. Usually, I rather modeling in box mode because it's a little bit much faster to calculate, and probably at the beginning it's not as intuitive, but at the end it's going to be much easier to model like this. So we're going to start with all the model in a plane. So all flat, and at the end we're going to extrude that, and we're going to give that a little bit of thickness to the object. Okay, we're going to make sure that the body, the tail, and the wings are symmetrical. So I will just work on one half, then I'm going to mirror that, and at the end I'm going to create the head without this symmetry. Okay, so first of all I'm going to start modeling this wing in here. So I'm going to start selecting my edge. So go to edge selection. I'm going to start selecting this edge in here. And with the move gamble that I have in here with the W, I'm going to start holding Alt on my keyboard and dragging my gamble. Okay, something like that. So from here, I'm going to click R to scale a little bit. So I'm going to scale that. Okay, and W to move a little bit. So with W, E, and R, I'm changing the gamble. So are these three different options. I can also click it. Okay, and I will just keep modeling that. Every time that I want to do an extrusion, just make sure that I have my move gamble in here, and I hold Alt to create another extrusion, something like this. So now I'm going to click E on my keyboard, rotate a little bit, W to move that a little bit, and repeat it again. Hold Alt to extrude that, E to rotate a little bit, W to move, holding Alt, E to rotate, W to move, E to rotate a little bit, W, and drag that. Okay, something like this is a good start for this model. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I don't want to create everything manually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge, holding Shift. I'm going to select multiple edges. And right now with a W, with the move gamble, I'm going to hold Alt, okay, and I'm going to drag it down a little bit, something like this. Right now I can scale that, so I can click R and scale that a little bit and make sure that this wing is growing. So something like this. There we go. Okay, I can make sure that it's floating a little bit with the wings in here, but something like that, it's gonna be good enough. So I'm gonna do it one more time, holding Alt, dragging it a little bit, R to scale that, and scale it up a little bit. I will move that. And from here at this point, I will just make sure that I'm matching this a little bit better. So I'm gonna use the vertex selection. I can click 1, 2, or 3 just to change between these different modes. Okay, with 1 I can select vertex and I can just refine the shape of this vertex. Okay, so sometimes it will be much easier if I go like this to refine the final shape in here. Okay, something like this. At the end, I will make individual extrusions in here, but something like this will look like I'm expecting. So I need to add one face in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the edges, select this edge, select this other edge, and I will go to the bridge. So edition and bridge. I can also click B on my keyboard if I have hotkeys active, but click here, I can bridge that. Okay, and I can create this face in here. I could also create the face manually with the pen face tool. It will be exactly the same. Okay, so with this bridge options in here, I can just click OK, and there we go. I have this option in here. Perfect. I have almost my wing done. So the last thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to select this edge in here. I will hold Alt and drag it a little bit. Okay, and I can scale that down a little bit, something like this, just to make sure that this is going right there. Okay, and here in this last extrusion, I will refine a little bit. I'm gonna make sure that I have this final touch to the wing. So just select one edge individually, one by one, and drag it up a little bit. Also with this one, drag it up a little bit, holding Alt, grab this one, hold it a little bit, drag this one, hold it, and this is the last one, hold it and drag it. Okay, right now it looks like nothing special, but if I smooth that, I can see the result. For sure, I can keep modeling and refining while this is smooth, so I can see maybe the final result a little bit better. But something like this is gonna give us better the idea of the size of the edge and everything. So for instance, in here I can reduce that a little bit and rotate slightly, and also in here. Okay, as we don't have much time, I will just make sure that we understand everything. Okay, and we're gonna keep modeling that because we wanna finish this beautiful model. Okay, something like this. Remember that anytime we can just click here just to check the model, how it's gonna look like. Let's imagine that in this case, in this bottom bar, we don't want this to be split. Maybe we want to split a little bit later. We can anytime select these both vertex, and from here we can just weld these two vertex, okay, and merge it together. So right now I can refine that a little bit more, and we can just click 2 to select the edges, select the edge, hold Shift, hold Alt, sorry, and just refining a little bit this shape. And right now, if I smooth, I can have a a more similar or a more organic look in here, this part. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna save the model just in case. Okay, there we go. I won't model the other wing because I'm gonna mirror that. So right now I'm gonna work on the tail. Okay, so back to the box mode. And right now, again, I will start selecting both edges. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold Alt again, drag it a little bit, R to scale, make it a little bit bigger, and maybe a little bit like this. W to move, holding Alt, and again, drag it a little bit. R to reduce the size slightly, and the last time, holding Alt, R to scale, making it a little bit smaller. There we go. Okay, from here, what we're gonna do, maybe we can just slightly refine that, but like this, it's looking pretty cool. Maybe we can select all these faces in here and reduce that a little bit. Maybe just to a little bit. Okay, there we go. So from here, we're gonna start creating the different feathers in here for the tail. So I will select in the edges, select this edge, W, holding Alt, and drag it a little bit. Okay, we have different ways to do that. We can do it manually or we can do it as a group. So for instance, I can just double click here, holding Shift, double click here, and select all of them. Okay, right now all of them are selected. And right now I can hold Alt. Oops, there is one that I haven't selected, so making sure that I have all of them selected like that. Okay, I can click R just to scale that, and now I can hold Alt. Instead of doing with the move gamble, I can do it like this, so everything is gonna grow, as you can see. So now I can move that, move it down a little bit, and now I can scale it. Okay, something like that. I'll have to refine the shape a little bit better. Okay, something like this. It's looking pretty good. So maybe I can duplicate this step again. So holding R, holding Alt, dragging it a little bit, W to move it down slightly. Maybe we have to scale that a little bit more. Something like this. There we go, looking good. And right now to end it, we're gonna do exactly the same that we've done in here. So the last part, we're gonna grab, right now I will just do it in one half of my model. So selecting this edge, holding Alt and extruding a little bit. Maybe I can scale that also. Same in here, next edge, W, holding Alt a little bit and R to scale slightly. This one, W, holding Alt and scaling a little bit. And the last one, maybe we can do it double. So these two, W, holding Alt a little bit, and maybe down. So there we go. If we smooth that, that's going to be the result that we're having. That it's pretty cool. It's pretty what we are looking for. So it's good. We're happy with this result. So right now, before doing anything else, before doing the head, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the faces in here and remove all these half of the model. So just select all these faces and delete. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the entire object, select it, and on the Edition tab, I will go to Symmetry. When I click on Symmetry, I can select Symmetry by plane or by edge loop. In this case, I have this edge loop in here in the center, so I can click on Edge Loop, double click on this edge loop on the center, and right click to validate. So right now, this is how it's going to look like. In here, if I validate that, right now you're going to see that if I right click on that, okay, this model, it's going to be symmetrical right now. Okay, you can see that this orange loop of edges, if I go to a front view, it's so hard to see because I'm in ghosted mode. In shaded mode, you're going to see that perfectly. If you can see this orange line, it means that everything is perfectly symmetrical. So it means that if I select one edge on one side and I move it, it will also move on the other side. Okay, so right now it's the good time to remove and refine everything because everything is going to be perfectly symmetrical on both sides. Any change that I do on one side will be applied on the other one. So that's the right time to make all my refinements, okay, and make sure that everything looks like I want. Okay, so maybe here I will refine that a little bit. Okay, right now I don't want this to be symmetrical anymore because I want to read the head, and the head it's not symmetrical. So I will select the entire object. I will go again to my symmetry, and I will click on here on the last option, End Symmetry. So when I click on End Symmetry, you'll see that the orange loop on the center, it's being removed. So I can keep modeling from here without the fear that this will be symmetrical. Okay, I will refine a little bit this point, and with the two edges selected, I will hold Alt again as we did before and move it up. So in here we're going to create the neck of the phoenix, something like this. So I'm going to repeat this again. I will make sure that this is perfectly flattened, and I will rotate that a little bit and maybe increase the scale a little bit. One more time in here, rotate that a little bit and scale that, something like that. There we go. One more time, W, remember E to rotate, W to move, okay, E to rotate, something like this. Okay, and we're gonna create the last one. So again, holding Alt to extrude, rotating a little bit, R to scale it down a little bit, and just to refine the shape. Okay, something like this. Right now, what I can do is just clicking 1 to move the points, and I can make sure that I refine this shape a little bit more manually. Okay, just to make sure that this is looking as I want. So in here, I can go to wireframe if I want to check the model that I have behind. Okay, just to make sure that I can match it a little bit better. But something like this, it's good enough. Okay. I won't do the peg right now, so I will leave it like this, and after the extrusion, I will create the peg. Okay, because I don't want the peg to be the same height and everything else. So right now we have our model almost finished in flat. So I will save that again. Okay, so right now it's the moment where we have to create all the extrusion for my model. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna select the entire object, and I will go on the Edition tab here, and I will go to the Shell tool, this tool in here, or you can click G on your keyboard. Okay, let's do it. Let's click this tool. So right now it's going to be an arrow in here, so I can increase or decrease the size. Okay, it's the extrusion size. It's like the thickness. I rather have a small thickness in here, maybe something medium, something like that. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the external loop of faces just to make it a little bit smaller. Okay, something like it's gonna be good. And just right click to validate. So right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select by faces. I will select one face, hold shift and double click the next one. And this will select all the edges, all the faces, sorry. So remember, just select one face, holding shift, double click the next one, and it will select all of the faces in here. And right now with the scale gumball on the red axis in here, I will reduce that a little bit, slightly reduce that. Okay, so right now I'm gonna have a beautiful shape in here. Okay, right now it's not everything planar, so I have a beautiful shape, something like that. Maybe a little bit more. Like this, okay, perfect. Right now, for instance, I'm gonna refine the belly a little bit, so I will select these two faces in here, move that out a little bit, select this vertex at the center, and move it out a little bit, something like that. Okay, maybe even a little bit more, select the four faces, and stir it a little bit. Also here, the neck, maybe we want a transition between the belly and the neck, so maybe we can just move this vertex a little bit outside, also this vertex a little bit outside. Okay, there we go. For the head in here, maybe want a few parts a little bit bigger, but right now it looks quite decent. Maybe this face in here, we can extrude that a little bit more, and from here it's gonna appear the peg for this shape. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this face in here, and I will insert that. I will create an insertion. So Edition tab and Insert. Okay, from here you can choose the distance from here on the right. So I will choose a really small size for this inset. Okay. And right now with the move gumball, I will extrude that, the same that we did before planner. Right now we're going to do it with 3D shape. So holding Alt and drag it a little bit. We can hold R to reduce the size slightly, and again W to move. Using this orange arrow, it's for the normal direction, the direction where the face is pointing. So I'm going to do it again. Click R, reduce the size a little bit, and from the front view, maybe I can click here W and refine a little bit better the shape. So maybe all these edges in here, I can rotate that a little bit. W to move and refine the shape, and this the same with this last edge. R to rotate, W to move a little bit, and that can be the back. So right now the shape, it doesn't look so cool, but if I display in shaded and I smooth that, we can see a little bit the result of this shape. For sure, anytime we want, we can from here, from vertex, we can refine the shape a little bit if we don't like it. Maybe this vertex in here must go a little bit more outside to have a more beautiful shape in here. Maybe this one's in here from the head, a little bit more upper, something like this. Okay, now it looks a little bit better, like that. Okay, perfect. What else can we change in here? So in here on this tail, we have a few edges that we can just move up. So probably this edge, we can just move it up a lot, and probably this vertex in here, just this one, maybe a little bit more, just a little bit. And probably if we want a smoother transition in here, a little bit more also. For sure, we can grab all these faces in here and all these faces in here on the other side. Just make sure, Control, just to unselect, make sure that we have the same faces selected on one side and on the other one. Okay, and we can move that a little bit outside, just to increase the thickness in here, in this part. You can see how the model is changing its size. Okay, something like this looks amazing. For sure, anything that we want to refine in here. So if we want to increase this height in here on the bottom part, we can just move it a little bit. Remember that right now it's not symmetrical, the model, because we have the head. The head is not symmetrical, but something like this looks perfect. And from the front view, what we're gonna do, we're gonna add these details in here. So first of all, we're gonna grab this edge, and I'm gonna move it up a little bit more, something like that. Perfect. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this face. Just make sure that I'll have the object in this view. Grab this facing here, and from the front view, holding Alt, dragging it a little bit, E to scale, E to rotate, sorry, R to scale. And if I display it in wireframe mode, I can make sure that this is following a little bit, just slightly, the shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, just to follow that a little bit, something like this. And I'm going to do the same with this one. So from the front view, holding Alt, dragging it a little bit, R to scale, W to refine the position, again holding Alt, E, R, refining, and there we go. And right now, if we smooth that, we're going to see, if we display it in shaded mode, that we have these two details in here for the hair of the phoenix. Okay, great. Right now, I'm going to create this veil so fast before adding more details to the phoenix. So I'm going to use a torus, a regular primitive, to give this to create this shape. So I'm going to go in here to the primitives, and I will use the torus. So when I click on the torus is right here. It's hidden. I can change anything, the size or the thickness from my torus, but something like this, it's good enough. Okay, so I will just click on OK. And right now, select the entire object, E to rotate. So make sure that we rotate it like this, and we rotate it from the front view. We move it, and we move it up. Okay, from here we can just click R to rotate that a little bit, and W to move it. Okay, and maybe we can move it a little bit like this, so it's gonna match the position. Okay, perfect. So if I go to perspective view, this is not matching the position perfectly, so I will just drag it a little bit slightly. If we want to match it perfectly, we can go to the top view and just make sure that it's matching perfectly with the object. Okay, so right now we're going to create a veil. So I will use this same shape, but just refining a little bit the model. So Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and I will move it up a little bit. Okay, from here, I'm going to click E to rotate that a little bit, holding Shift to make sure that it is rotating 90 degrees. Okay, and from here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select these edges and select the internal edges and scale these internal edges a little bit. And the outside edges, I will select them also and increase them a little bit. Okay, something like that, perfect. I will select the entire object and making it a little bit bigger, something like that, perfect, and a little bit thicker also. Great. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale that a little bit like that. And what I'm going to do from the front view, I'm going to select by faces, all the top faces, and scale them like that. And I will select all the middle edges and scale them a little bit. Okay, just to have this beautiful shaping here, we can create a beautiful transition, a little bit more organic, something like that looks good. And from here, just refining the shape. So probably these two edges from the top, we can move them. Oops, sorry, I deselected. We can select it and move them up a little bit. And maybe those two, we can move them to the front a little bit. There we go. And we can move it like this just to make it match perfectly. If from the front view we need it a little bit bigger, or a little bit stretched, we can do it easily. Okay, so just select, click R, scale it a little bit, okay, and move it up just to make sure that it matches perfectly. If I don't need so much thickness on the bottom part, we can always select these edges on the bottom part, okay, and move them up a little bit. Okay, maybe I will move all these edges a little bit to the top. Okay, great. That's how it's looking. Looks so good. Okay, so right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure that I'm adding a bit more detail to this phoenix shape. Okay, so right now we have the beautiful organic model. So right now, if I turn off Clayoo, I can save that. I can display it in rendered mode, and I can go to my layers and hide my blueprint. And I have a beautiful model that I can refine anytime that I want. Okay, just activating again Clayoo, and in shaded mode, I can model anything that I want. Okay, from here, what I'm gonna do, first of all, I will select my Phoenix. I'm gonna create another layer, and I will say copy, and I'll right click that and copy object to the layer. I don't want to lose that, so I'm just copying the Phoenix layer, and I will just hide that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna use the sculpting brushes to give to this Phoenix a little bit more detail. Okay, so let's see how it works. I will select the model, I will go to the sculpting tab, and I will activate sculpting. So clicking here to sculpting. And in here on the Clayoo tab, you're gonna see all the object. When the model is painted with this red color, it means that we have sculpting activated. You'll see also in here a few brushes that will appear are the same brushes that we have in here on the toolbar. And here from the right, we have a few options. So the first option is the vertices and faces that we have on our model, 20,000, 20,000. So if we display it in shaded, you can see all the faces in here, all the small squares. We are going to subdivide that, so we're going to click in here, and we are multiplying by 4 the density of my object. So right now it has a lot more resolution than before, but the brushes are going to look a little bit better. So from here we can change the radius of my brush. You can see in here the round where I can paint, or the intensity, the strength. In this case, we're going to start modeling the symmetrical part of the model. So I can activate the symmetry in here. So you're going to see that the brush is symmetrical. So we can add the same details to one wing and to the other one. And at the end, we're going to add some details to the head that it's not symmetrical. Okay, so let's go. I will use the sculpting rendered shader to display it a little bit better. And we're going to see the different brushes. So first of all, we have the regular brush. In here it says which brush are we using currently. So this brush is the regular one. So if we use this brush, we're going to add some detail to my model. Okay, I can keep painting with this brush. If I zoom in a little bit, we're gonna have a smaller brush. If we zoom out, we're gonna have a bigger brush. Okay, you can anytime undo that. Okay, great. So we can, for instance, add more details to these parts in here. So right now everything is so organic, but we can add a few details in here. Don't worry, because it's not looking perfectly in here, but we're gonna smooth that a little bit later. So don't worry if the details are not as beautiful as you want them. Okay, we've added some details. Right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the smooth tool. Any time we can hold shift and smooth anything independent of the brush that we are using, or we can use the smooth tool. The smooth tool, you're gonna see that while I'm using it, everything that it seemed a little bit weird before, it's turning again to extremely smooth and perfectly shaped. Okay, so it doesn't matter if we just brush too much. Anytime we can smooth that and go back to our kind of original state with this perfect shape. Okay, so don't worry if we just use brushes with um, without thinking too much on what we are doing. Okay, so from here what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to use the drag tool, this last drag tool in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit, okay, and click some parts and drag that. You're going to see this beautiful shaping here. It looks like small feathers, so I will just click and drag that a little bit, click and drag a little bit, click and drag, click and drag. Okay, we're gonna add these small details to a few parts for this. Okay, and right now holding shift or going to the smooth brush, but right now holding shift, we can just reduce the intensity that we created in here with all those feathers. So we don't want to be so pronounced. Okay, what else can we do? We can give a little bit more detail to this transition in here. So I'm going to use the crease tool. Okay, right now I don't want to create an outside, so an extrusion. So if I paint in here, I'm creating an extrusion. So I want to create a hole. So I will activate the negative option. And in here, between one feather and the other one, I will brush a little bit to create this kind of hole in here, just a little bit. Okay, a little bit like that, and a little bit like that in here. Okay, just to add a bit more detail. All right, now I do like a lot to use the pinch tool. Okay, the pinch tool will make sure that we are joining these shapes a little bit. We can just remove the negative right now. We are joining all these shapes that we are creating right now that are new. We are joining it and giving it a little bit more importance. You see that we are joining everything. Okay, great, it's looking much better. We can make sure that these edges in here are a little bit more pronounced. Okay, it looks a little bit better. And at the end, anytime use the smooth, okay, a little bit just to make sure that, okay, everything turns smooth again. Okay, cool details in here on the wing. For sure in here on the bottom part, we can do exactly the same, but in this case, we're gonna use a bit more sorry, not external, just negative. Okay, a little bit more the negative brush for this shape, a little bit in here, and a little bit in here. Okay, and probably a little bit more in here. Okay, there we go. And maybe in here we can add a few more details. So probably right now, if I get rid of the negative, so I can create a few details in here just to make sure that this looks a little bit different than the other shape. Okay, maybe in here I can add a few more details, and in here also. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch that a little bit. So pinch this edge, and this edge a little bit. If I zoom in, I'll have more control of what I'm pinching. Something like this, and I will pinch that a little bit also. Great, looks so good. I can also pinch that a little bit, this central spine. Okay, and right now, just smoothing a little bit. You can see, for instance, in here, it doesn't look so smooth. So I can anytime go for a smoothness. Just make sure that I don't get rid of all the detail, but just a little bit to create a smoother transition for everything. Okay, something like this looks great. Okay, so cool. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, looking good. Looking quite good. Okay, we haven't added any detail in here to the head. We can add a small hole if we want to. We can click on the brush. We can create a negative brush. Right now we're going to remove the symmetry. Okay, and we can make sure that we create kind of a hole for the eye, for instance. So you can create this kind of a hole in here, holding shift to smooth that a little bit. So we can create this beautiful shape in here. And maybe if we want to add a little bit more detail in there, so maybe we can increase that a little bit. So not negative, sorry. So we can add a few details in here. Okay, going from the head, and I can smooth this part in here. Okay, so we can add a few more details in here to this part. Okay, something like that. Okay, so right now what I'm gonna do, if I have finished this model, maybe I can smooth a little bit more. Okay, but something like this looks so good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on OK just to finish my sculpting. And once I'm finishing my sculpting, it's gonna say if I want to keep my original object. You remember that before we copied the object, but anyway, imagine that you haven't copied the object and you want to go back or have both models previously from sculpting and the sculpted one. So it will ask you if you want to keep the original object. The original object is the one that we've modeled with Clayoo. I'm going to say yes, I want to keep both. So right now in here I have both models. The mesh, that it's the model that we have sculpted, that it's no longer a Clayoo object, okay, and the Clayoo object. So I'm going to select the mesh, and I will move this mesh a little bit. There we go. So I can copy also the veil, Control C and Control V, and from the front view, I'll make sure that more or less the position of the veil it's correct, something like that. There we go. And right now from the perspective view, you can see that if we display it in rendered mode, we can see the differences right now. Okay, so this one on the right is with all the details that we've added in sculpting. Okay, details that maybe are kind of hard to create if we are modeling it with Clayoo, with SubD, but they're going to be much easier with sculpting. And here on the left, we have our basic shape, the main spine of the object that we created, that we can edit anytime that we want. Okay, this one we can edit it in Clayoo. Okay, turning on Clayoo. This one is a regular mesh. So right now we can keep sculpting and sculpting again and again, but we cannot go back to the Clayoo object. Okay, but it's going to be a mesh, so we can print it out. We can keep sculpting on it. We can do anything that we want, but having the Clayoo options. So in here, I would love to add a few materials. I don't have any materials in here. That's a shame. Let me add one metal, something like this. Okay, and I will add one metal material to this Phoenix and to everything else. Select everything else. I could easily come here and assign to objects a little bit better. Okay, there we go. And right now we have a beautiful piece of jewelry. Okay, created kind of fast with Clayoo and Clayoo sculpting. Okay, and in here you have the object in the shaded view. So that's it for today's webinar. I hope that you liked it and you learned a lot. There's a different way of modeling, and it's so interesting when we have to model types like this. I hope you got a lot of ideas and had a lot of fun. So we're gonna keep this webinar open a few more minutes just to make sure that all the questions are answered. And again, thanks so much for attending, and hope to see you on the next webinar. Goodbye, have a good day, good night, or a good evening, depending on your zone. Bye-bye, thanks.